Welcome to Koffee Talks, a Pokemon card collecting podcast, featuring David Person, owner of the world's most complete English Pokemon card collection, and Dan Norton, a longtime collector with all the knowledge behind the cards.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Welcome to another Koffee Talks. I'm here, as always, with David, and this week we have another special guest. We have Dan from KetchumAllCollectibles. Dan, how's it going?
Doing very well. How are you two? I'm excited to be a part of this. Thanks, guys, for bringing me on. I've been a big fan, following it the whole way.
Yeah, you've been one of our regular commenters from day one, really.
Yeah.
Dan,
But I'm doing good. You good, David?
Can I say something, Dan? You're just all over the place. I can't get a word in edgewise, and we've been 1 minute in the podcast. It's like an NBA game when you foul on the opening tip. It's not okay, Dan. Just settle back and just relax, okay? All right.
Say what you want to say.
I just want to understand if Dan's name of his business is KetchumAllCollectibles or KetchumAllCollectibles. Nobody's really been clear to be able to tell me that. So, Dan, what is the name of your business, and why isn't it?
I went with that would have been clever, and clever, which I'm not. So I didn't think of something so catchy. But yeah, Collectibles. That's the way that I went. I figured I'd keep things open. I've done Steins, I've done coins, I've done a little bit of different things. So I didn't want to if I went collect the balls, right? I'm kind of tied to the whole Pokeball thing. Stay a little bit safer with it.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
There you go, David. The question that could have been answered if you just read the comments properly every week.
I can't read the comment, man. I don't. That's for the audience. I just do the podcast and then walk away for 7 days. That's all I do, Dan. I'm not getting paid enough to read the comments. Okay, so listen, let me get through some administrative stuff. First of all, you guys always know my internet is terrible, and it is what it is. And it's not like I haven't tried to pay to fix it. We've had everybody from the entire state of Nevada come, and no one can fix it. So anyways, I'm going to get through the best I can. Number two is I always like to apologize. First, I'm going to apologize for my appearance. Just look at me. I need say nothing else, okay? In addition to that, I'm going to apologize for not having a regular podcast. Dan is much better to have on the new Dan because he's going to be more interesting anyway. So you guys win either way. But I've been completely exhausted, and so I haven't been holding my end of the bargain up and getting all the Trainer Deck ABs, other segments going on. And so we just call on our good friend, someone like Dan at KetchumAllCollectibles to help us out in these situations where we're so exhausted we can't seem to get anything done the right way. I do want to tell you that my story is special, and it's one of the most interesting things you'll ever hear. I don't know how to tell it. So you guys, what do you mean your story, Uncle Dave? It has nothing to do with Pokemon. I'm raising an NBA prospect player. He will be playing in the NBA, and it's pretty darn incredible. He's going to be the first autistic ADHD kid to ever make it to the NBA. So I want someone to help me tell that story. But we had some developments this week that were very controversial and changed his path of his course of his training. And so I've had to step in now and do stuff that 62 someone would want to be doing at 30. So I am really tired. I do want to tell the world about it. If you guys feel like you can help me with the recordings and how to do a daily kind of recording and let people know, I think you'd really enjoy the journey with us. But that's the reason I'm tired. No excuses, but it is what it is. So my sincere and incredible thanks to Dan for jumping on with us, the good Dan, not the other one, to help us get through tonight with some good information by a wonderful man. And we're looking forward to it. Okay, stop talking. No, I have more to say. Okay, the next thing is we haven't been doing our giveaways, so I need to do them now because we need to keep our end of that bargain up. So I'm going to do that very quickly. I have, over the last 48 hours, processed all of the entries for the Empoleon giveaway. That was a couple podcasts ago. And for the Tell Me If You Grade giveaway, that was the last podcast. And here are your winners. I need to say this up front. Steven, you did not win again. Hold out, buddy. I swear it's going to happen. You're going to win at some point. I know this isn't easy for you. If you never win, I'm going to send you something anyways, or just come visit me when you're off your pilgrimage. Okay. So the Empoleon winner was Fazul. Fazul won the giveaway during that podcast, otherwise known as GACNAC Gaknak. None of this makes any sense. Not as much as KetchumAllCollectibles. That makes a lot more sense. And then
That's a familiar name to me, though.
Yeah. And the other giveaway, the next one, which was on the grading podcast we did last week, the winner there was Ponga Collectibles, aka Dominic. So congratulations on your win there. We will have an announcement in this one. There will be a giveaway in this one too, and I will tell you later what you have to do to participate. Let's see what else I have to say about the giveaways. I can't remember. Anyway, so I'll send something out for both of those.
Well,
yeah.
At some point during the podcast, Dan will be saying something interesting, and you'll interrupt him to shout out the name of a card, and then people have to DM you on Instagram with the name of that card.
Absolutely, and that's exactly how it goes. So we are going to address comments at another of the previous videos and stuff at a later time. I promise we'll get to them. And the other thing is we'll do a part 2 of the grading podcast because there's been a lot of dialogue around that. And I think that's fantastic. But we want to be able to digest all of your amazing comments, your intellectually stimulating comments, put it all together, and then get an expert on that knows what they're doing with all of that. We contemplated that for this evening's podcast, but because Dan really knows all that stuff as well. But Dan and I talked about before, Dan Norton and I talked before, Dan at KetchumAll got on and thought to ourselves, you know what? He's just such an interesting guy. Let's just talk about him tonight because that's what's interesting to us, and you guys will find as well. So with that, Dan Norton, anything else before we jump in with Dan at K?
No, I think that's all covered. I think that's all people need to know, and anything else we need to address with people we can do in our next regular episode, hopefully next week. Good.
So Dan at KetchumAll, what is the story, buddy? Like, you might be the most controversial figure in the entire hobby right now. Why is that, and what's going on?
I'm assuming you're talking with respect to like MetaZoo, or what are we talking? You want like the background, or?
Dan, I made the whole thing up. I didn't even know what I was saying.
Okay.
I just wanted you to jump in and start chatting, and we'll take it from there. What do you want to tell us about yourself, your family, your business? Because we got so much to talk about. Just give us an introduction.
I'll give a really quick intro on me. I go back in this hobby. My return to the hobby, I'm going on 34 this year. So same story. 5th grade when it came to the States, the off screen, but my Kiwi Green, Game Boy Color, Pokemon Yellow. That's what got me into it originally. The video games were number 1, Yellow then Crystal. The cards were number 2, and I never played, but collected. As everyone did, as most people did. I guess I got out there sometime around Sapphire. I got out. 2014, I got back in. I moved out on my own, moved out of my parents' house a couple years after getting my full-time job, getting that down payment saved up, and moving house from my parents out of their attic, out of wherever it was. I came across my binder again. One of the multiple times I came across my binder again, and thankfully still have it. But yeah, that was 2014, 10 years. 10 years I've been doing this on the side for the first 6 or 7. And then 2020, the boom happened, all that crazy stuff. And I was making more money, and I was having more fun, making more money with my side hustle. So it's like, let's bring this side hustle front and center and go all in. And that was 2021. And yeah, a few years on YouTube, a few years on Instagram. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm thankful that I have such great people to share this all with, this shared passion we all have. And that's the best part about it, is just engaging with other people through YouTube, through these meetups, collecticons, worlds, all these different things.
Yeah, that's such a fantastic story. So let's piece it out just a little bit. What were you doing before? So what was not the side hustle that now either is no longer there, or now is the other side hustle as this came front and center?
That's completely done now, because it would be hard to side hustle. I was a chemical engineer. It's a bit of a meme on my channel because I say it so frequently.
Okay.
I bring a lot of like my engineering brain, I think, into the Pokemon space. I do a lot with analytics and spreadsheets and things of that nature. I think I used to do that quite a bit more years ago when I was actively an engineer. I think I'm losing a little bit of that, losing the time to do it so much. But yeah, I like to have like a good foundation in the pop reports and the print run data, and the numbers just really intrigue me and get me roped into it all. And then yeah, that was a fun 10 years though. 10 years I was full time as a chemical engineer and closed that chapter after a decade. It was actually like 2 weeks after my 10-year anniversary that I put in my 2-week notice.
Wow.
It's funny timing.
Amazing. And before we talk about, kind of that transition, just to hear a little bit about your family life, like married, children, that kind of stuff.
Yep. Married, 2 kids. Not really like a high school sweetheart situation. We did go to the same high school, but it's funny. We went to the same high school growing up. She was a close friend of my sister's actually. So like I knew her, was friends with her. We talked a bit, but like while we were in proximity, she graduated 1 year ahead of me. We never like dated in high school. But when we went off to college, neither of us went too far. We went a couple hours. We're both in upstate, like central New York more so. We both went to college around like the Albany area. And we just ended up dating. We started talking more in college and we started dating then. And yeah, so we've been together since 2010. Crazy to think, going on 14 years. How many? Going on 9 years married this year, if I'm remembering correctly. She does watch some of my content, so I need to be careful. And then that's actually a great, like, one of my favorite things about the hobby, and it's not forced. It's if they want to get into it, they can. And so far, 5 and 3, my 2 kids. And Paldean Fates just came out. Every time a new set comes out, we open at least an ETB together. Certain ones go into their binders. Certain ones go into the big chest they have of all these cards that are just like mutilated. And we primarily play war style. So we play like I used to play when I was younger, bigger number wins. That's just the way we play. We get like anywhere between 2 and 50 cards each, and then we just go through them like a deck like that.
Oh, that's so fun. And your story is wonderful because it just shows you how really unappreciative and uninterested and uninteresting, and how I can't stand my kids. Okay, love you guys. If you're watching, none of my kids watch me my podcast, so it doesn't matter. Never took an interest, never will. Dan's like the son I never had. Thank God. Okay, thank goodness. Sorry, Rusty. All right. Okay. Now, a lot of stuff running through the head. Got to slow down. So you were with your wife at the time that you transitioned from the chemical engineering situation. Was she behind it? Was she, scared? Was she, not that she was or wasn't your wife. She was kind of right around that time. So guess what? Let's get married and you're going to leave your job right now. And that seems really good. And this is great timing for the rest of our life. How did that conversation go?
She definitely has always trusted me. We've always both been like savers. So it's not like I just on a whim up and decided I'm going to quit my job to do Pokemon full time with like no financial foundation, with no, like, we were both well in advance of our like average of our similar age for retirement accounts and paying down debt and not having a lot of consumer debt. We're both, I mean, aside from my background, when I say this in front of my background, it's always funny. Not very like materialistic, not very consumer heavy, myself or my wife, with all this stuff behind me naturally. But in Pokemon, I'm really bad, but otherwise we're both really good. And even before, so yeah, we started dating in 2010, engaged in 2014, married in 2015. So when we were engaged is about when I got back into Pokemon. But before Pokemon, like, she was familiar with eBay. When she first moved into the house, when we were dating, when she visited my apartment, visited my room at my parents' house, I guess, she saw Steins, she saw coins, she saw video games. Like, I was doing all different kinds of things. Like eBay since high school has been a part of my life, a side hustle, something there. So she knew what she was getting into to an extent. She would have never expected this coming 9 years down the line, nor would I have either. I mean, it's all just opportunity, right? Opportunity presented itself. So I went, and thankfully she's a teacher. So she has like just a stable, secure, decently paying job with very, very solid benefits. And I kind of another running joke on my channel, I call her my sugar mama. She brings home the bacon. She pays the bills. She allows me to go and chase my passion, do my thing. I think I commented on one of your things recently, or maybe a couple episodes ago, about shout out to the sugar mamas out there. I think, I don't know. I watch too much Pokemon content, but I think that kind of came up, and yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate the sugar mamas here on this
No,
podcast. And this
no,
channel.
we don't. I don't appreciate it because So Dan Norton has one, and Dan at KetchumAll has one, and Alex at Nostalgianomics has one. But Uncle Dave, he missed that boat. That's sensational. Great. Okay. Just keep digging.
That's right. It was Alex's episode. Yep.
Button it up and go. Okay. Well, congratulations. Your wife deserves many kudos, not only for putting up with you and having the trust, but also for being the sugar mama. You have mentioned several times, I want to go in chronological order, but that's not my style. I could care less. So tell me, you keep talking about your channel. Shame on me, because I all I've ever had with you is wonderful transactions. We'll talk about a couple of them. And so I get a feel for people from doing those. It doesn't take much for me. I'm very trusting anyways. And I've always had wonderful, interactions with you. But I have not watched your channel. So like I said, shame on me. And hopefully our viewers will watch, because Dan's just a cool guy. What are you doing? What is the channel? What is it? What are you talking about? How often are you podcasting? What's that look like?
Yeah, so I actually have two things kind of going on, and I got to shout out Old School Pokemon. You guys are probably familiar with Nick to some extent. He I think I was his second or third choice, but he wanted to run a podcast sometime around late 2020. He hit me up after being rejected by a couple people, and he's like, "Hey Dan, the first two people didn't want to do it, but do you want to do a podcast?" And so I did. So my channel actually started back in, I think it's coming up on 3 years now, February or March, maybe March of 2021. And we started out, now it's live every other week, but it used to be every other week, pre-recorded, kind of like this one. We just talk Pokemon. Two passionate people about Pokemon. We went years back doing business transactions. We had met at Worlds, and we just wanted to engage more and talk Pokemon regularly, because no one in our real lives were that into it. And just, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, kind of in my intro, engaging with others who are passionate about the same things is just one of the best things about all this. And so, yeah, that was how my channel started, every other week doing a podcast with Nick. And at that time it was a side hustle, but I had it in the back of my mind. It's maybe this could be a thing. So I just wanted to document my journey. Kind of the selfish side of it is I want to just document my journey, and maybe I'll never look back, but if I want to look back, it'll be there. Because between 2014 and 2021, I did a lot of exciting things, and I have those memories still. I kind of wish, though, that I'd had a channel or an Instagram or something. I opened one of every booster box, every English set booster box, aside from base set first edition. All the first edition WotCs, every set. It was a very insane endeavor. I lost a lot of money doing it. I supported that endeavor by flipping and doing what I could to offset the cost as much as possible. So yeah, I really wanted to just capture what I was doing, figure out where it was going to go once we got there. And then because at the time too, between 2014 and 2020, I don't remember all the times and all the exact people, but I was definitely following a few different content creators. I was following Nick, Old School Pokemon. I was watching some Gem Mint Pokemon, and they brought me entertainment. They brought me value. And today, your guys' podcast brings me value through entertainment, through education, through all these different things. I wanted to be able to put out some of that, and in hopes that someone would follow along and watch and enjoy. And if no one ever did, I don't know. I mean, it's not like a massive amount of people are doing it, but I've built a pretty fun community, a fun following. Now I go live every other week on my channel, and it's fun. We have some inside jokes. We've got some things we talk about. We talk about the latest news in Pokemon. It's an enjoyable thing. I work for myself, self-employed. No coworkers, no water cooler chat. So it's I need some socialization probably, so that I don't go crazy on my own. So
that's all.
Yeah,
cool.
That's my long ramble on
that.
that.
I mean, it's all very cool. And I think it's the reason that Dan gets on with me once a week, because he also needs some socialization. And we try to bring out, whatever we can in him, but it sounds like he should be live on your channel just to practice more. Dan, what, so what is the name of this podcast or whatever, in case anybody wants to look for it?
Yeah. I go on long rants and rambles, and I forget where I've been and where I'm going sometimes. But it started out on my channel one week or maybe we both posted it together. We posted it together. A year into it, I think, we split off. We call it Poke Flips. We're both primarily businesses in Pokemon. So we talk about primarily eBay side, selling, flipping Pokemon, how to buy, how to sell, where, and how to do all that. So yeah, Poke Flips on YouTube. That is myself and Old School Pokemon. It's our combined podcast together. And every other week, we just do a live Q&A where you can bring any and all kinds of questions, primarily Pokemon focused, but we get all kinds of stuff and we take them as we get them.
Okay. And so
I'll make sure everything's linked in the description for anyone who's watching the video on YouTube, so it'll all be there, so you can just go look for it straight down there.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you. It's nice to see you're actually still with us. I appreciate it. And Dan, that's good because I don't, Dan, I can't find that stuff if you don't stick a darn link in. So how has it grown? What are you, just roughly, how many, and I'm putting this in specifically just to challenge Dan to see if we can actually get a few more viewers before I'm dead. Dan at KetchumAll, what are the number of viewers that watch this live podcast with you or ultimately watch a video after the fact? Or, when you're said and done, what do you average as far as viewership?
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask me how many subscribers, and I had to pull it up because I didn't remember off the top of my head. But we have 1,550 subscribers. Generally, we get more views on every episode than we have subscribers, which it's an interesting thing. My channel has been fairly similar to that too. My average viewership for a live on my personal channel is maybe about 60 to 70. And then similar for Poke Flips, there's been times where we've been over 100. If it was like a heavy news week and something big, dramatic is there for people to click on it. I think you guys know how that works at times. And same goes for my channel. But our average live gets about 2,000 views, 1,500 to 2,000. We will have to have you guys on at some point too, if you guys are interested. Pending our guests, there we usually do Friday afternoon, like once a month with guests. So we do ourselves once, and then 2 weeks later we do with a guest, and then 2 weeks later we do with us. So we do every other week, alternating every other episode having a guest.
Yeah,
I'd be down for that. I'm always down to come and talk Pokemon.
Yeah, which is cool. Dan can come on anytime, Dan, but I can't because I'll be, I have a shorter lifespan. So just keep that in mind when you're scheduling. So that's all really cool. Fantastic. Do you, when you, final thing, just because I think people look at people like you as mentors and leaders and people they want to take some positivity away from, is it monetized? Do you feel like you make a few dollars? Is that even of interest to you? Do you have more plans to grow it even large or go on the Spotifys of the world or whatever? Or is it comfortable right now the way it is in the podcast world for you?
It's definitely more of a labor of love. That goes for both Poke Flips and my own channel. My own channel and Nick's channel too, subscriber count. I think his YouTube channel has been very dormant recently. He made one a couple weeks ago because I was pushing him to after like a 6-month hiatus. But we both have a little over 4K subscribers on our main channels. And then our podcast only has a third of that, but it gets about the same viewership, if not slightly more than either of our channels, which I mean, I think views matter more than subs ultimately when it comes to like the financials of it. But both channels are definitely more of a labor of love. As far as the direct financials go, a couple $100 a month, maybe a few $100 a month in a good month. A little bit more when you tie in. I don't know if you guys do affiliate links at all, but monetization is definitely secondary. More of it is for like chronicling my journey, hopefully sharing, creating value for others of that journey, whether education, entertainment, whatever it may be. And there's definitely a lot more indirect benefits than there are direct, because like having the face out there, having the face tied to the brand and all that, it makes it more than just KetchumAllCollectibles, right? Like, hey, it's Dan. We know Dan. We see Dan every week, either on his channel or on Poke Flips. And I get people reaching out, selling collections to me, people reaching out to do big deals, buy things off me. I actually do consignments. It's not like the main portion of my business, but it's a pretty reasonable size thing. And I do a little bit of consultation, a little bit of Patreon type stuff. And not that I try to like very monetize it as much as possible and make it just a big billboard ad for all my other stuff. But they kind of do funnel together. They kind of have a way to work together and all feed each other a little bit.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, I think that's strategic in all manners, because it just essentially it builds your brand, which is ultimately what any business wants
Mm.
to do. So, so I just have one more question about your podcast, so your channel versus this other, Flips thing. How often are you podcasting there, and what's the intent behind the content on there versus that other live stream situation?
Yeah, so Flips is every other week, and I go live every week in between. Up until last summer ish, I was actually going live on my channel every week with Flips every other week. So I was live either once a week and then twice the weeks that Flips was going live. It became kind of a lot of FaceTime on YouTube, a little bit too much. Family situation. I'm actually working nights now, so that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. I just didn't have the time. Maybe I'll return to that at some point. But my lives are very directed by the live chat. It's pretty much Q&A. It's pretty much just a Q&A hangout. Whatever the latest and greatest, hottest drama, news, whatever it may be in the Pokesphere is what I'm generally asked about. So what I'm generally talking about. Um, it could be anything. Sometimes people come like, how do I set up an eBay account? How do I set up a PSA account? How do I grade? How do I ship this? How do I ship that? Sometimes it's tax advice, financial advice, like not financial advice, but as much as I can talk on that's something that I've been known to get very into a lot. Going back to the spreadsheets, going back to the math engineering background, it's tax optimization and things of that nature, like business structuring, are something that's often overlooked in the cardboard business space, I think.
Wow, a lot going on there. What do you mean when you say working nights? Because we know your primary thing is the Pokemon thing. Are you just saying because of family time that you're having to do the business of Pokemon during the evening hours?
Yeah, that's a great thing about being my own boss, running my own business, right? Is that I can set my own hours. But I guess I'll give you the very shortened version. In the past, my sister used to babysit my children. Then my son started pre-K. Well, her son's the same age. He started pre-K at the same time. So once they both got like full day into kindergarten, my daughter is a couple years behind. So my daughter's not yet in pre-K, and my family was faced with the decision. Well, my sister's on to a real job, a normal job now. Can't watch my daughter anymore. So during the day, we could send her to daycare, or we could have me stay home with her, Mr. Mom, during the day with my daughter, and pick up my son from school, get to spend a little bit of time with him. So that's what I do. I'm with my daughter all day during the school day. And, school, like, they're off all the time. Whatever holiday, Monday, they get 3-day weekends a lot. They get the midwinter recess, obviously a long summer break. So once summer comes, I'll be back to like working days. But right now, and it wasn't less a financial thing. I mean, obviously daycare isn't cheap, but it was more like my wife's a big worrier. Not super comfortable with like sending her off to a daycare with someone we don't really know at all, and it would have only been for a year. It's like it's easier for me to just shift my work schedule.
Yeah, yeah, and it's nice that you're young enough to actually have the energy to do that. So that's something that unfortunately yeah, I said to my son today. I said, you know what, you are. I wish that I'd had adopted you not at 50, but at 30, because I said, I need that energy to be able to handle you 12 years old and what we're doing. And he looked at me and he said, but Dad, I wouldn't have been alive if you'd have been 30. So yeah, he didn't quite get the whole grasp of the whole thing. So we admire very much. I know.
So you were having plenty of children at age 30.
Well, I know, but I didn't have him. So yeah, Rusty talks about that, like right now, how you can't bother him during the day because he's coaching basketball with the kids and whatever. So it's nice to hear you, of course, the people that are well grounded and centered and have it figured it out. That they have the kids and the family as the first priority. So that's just wonderful to hear.
Definitely.
So I want to hear about your business mix. So what do you do either during your Pokemon hours, as you would call them, or is it primarily eBay selling? Is it wholesale selling? Is it people reaching out? Like, what? How do you make your money? Where does your money come from in the Pokemon card space? And notwithstanding the fact that I'm sure you do some other things like your steins and your coins and things that are probably somewhat tangential, but I'm presuming you make most of your money in the Pokemon space. What does that look like?
Pretty much everything is in the cardboard space now. I'm 95% Pokemon, 5% other, maybe 4% of that other being MetaZoo. But 90+% eBay. Troll and Toad, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the website Troll and Toad, very, very large. I'm sure you
Yeah.
probably are. They had a program that was basically almost like a consignment service called Evo. I am / was an Evo merchant. And so kind of rolling it back to the whole 2014 to 2020 period. I was primarily collector then. These days, this season of KetchumAllCollectibles, this season of Dan, I'm business. So I'm extracting capital to save in my retirement funds and all that. But from 2014 to 2020, I didn't pull a penny out, and I hoarded. I'm telling you, I hoarded. So Troll and Toad Evo was something that I got into in late 2020, and I just sent them like pallets and pallets and pallets worth of stuff. I had just all the excess cards from opening one of every box, all the excess cards from like building my entire collection, some of my former collection, because when I turned more business minded, I moved on from a lot of my collection. So yeah, the vast majority of what I do is like actively buying and selling. Some amount of that is ultra modern through wholesale distribution. I've been with wholesale distribution since late 2014 or early 15. So I get the newest sets from distribution and just sell those onto the market. At various times, I've done a little bit of opening. I've done like mass box breaks, selling singles, grading some of the cards. But these days, it's more buying large collections, piecing them out, grading what should be graded, selling raw what should be sold raw, kind of like piecing out and optimizing the selling platform. But primarily it's eBay. I do the remainder of what's left. I started with that whole Troll and Toad conversation, and then I forgot to say that's kind of being sunsetted. So I have what I had sent that's there that they're selling through, but as of right now, they're not taking anything new back from me. That was a growing part of my business through the end of 2022, and then they just turned the faucet off on that in 2023. So that was like a big thing that I was shifting towards and then forced to shift away from. But eBay's definitely where I do the bulk of it. And then supplementary, like little bit of the Patreon as far as like financials go. A little bit of time too. I mean, I do Patreon and I do YouTube and I do have a little bit of income coming in from like that kind of stuff. But most of it is just buying, selling. And then some part of my buying, selling is long-term, realizing long-term capital gains almost. Like I hoarded for a 7-year span. I still have some amount of stuff that I bought in 2015 and hadn't sold it since. So I'm still like processing through a several year backlog from that first 7 years of collector, crazy hoarder Dan.
That's so interesting. Again, every time you say something, I could go 14 different directions, and so it makes it hard to stay chronological because you bring up points that we discussed in previous podcasts. So talk about for a minute this idea of hoarding something from back 7 or 8 years ago. One of the pitfalls that we talk about, that with all of this new modern stuff coming out and with all the new collectors coming into the hobby, even investors, flippers, a lot of that older stuff seems to have for the moment just kind of faded from memory. And I'm not the one to talk about the time frames. I don't know them well enough, but I might liken it to the fact that I put away a bunch of plasma stuff back in the day. Okay. Now, when I look at the world today, I don't think anybody even knows what plasma storm or plasma freeze or plasma on your television is. And so the people that have that, nobody wants it and nobody's collecting it and nobody's looking for it because every year there's 4 more sets coming out and here's 151 and that's all we want and there's the collectible. Do you ever get concerned about the the amount of money that's put into that you expect is going to be great someday if this thing keeps getting more and more people and eventually they go back. But it's not such a simple transition now because a lot of people just aren't looking back. Looking back to them is sun and moon, not back that far. What Dan Norton, we got to get him to say something just to make sure he's not a still frame on the thing. Dan Norton, what? No, I love you, Dan. I just kid. What goes before plasma freeze? What is the what era is it?
The plasma stuff is the end
black
of
black and white. Okay,
yeah.
So Dan at KetchumAll, what did I just say, and how do you answer it?
Yeah, there's all these conversations that go on of like vintage versus modern, and one thing that I'm always saying is that we're all in the same arena. Our arena is Pokemon. We're all playing different games, and we're playing by different rules too. This season of KetchumAllCollectibles, I am a business. I am most interested with and most focused on high liquidity and margin. Like liquidity and margin are the two things that I need to focus on. Most of the businesses in the industry and most of the hype, most of where the dollars transact are going to be in modern. That's just, if you think about it from this perspective, like Pokemon isn't making money. Obviously, they're getting a benefit from having the 25 years of history and having all those earlier sets, but they don't make money when I sell a PSA 9 base unlimited Charizard. They don't make money when I sell a heavy base set booster pack. They make money when 151 sells to their distributors. They make money when 151 sells on their website through MJ Holdings to Target, to Walmart, things like that. So same thing for PSA. I mean, some amount of the older cards, some amount of the mid-era cards, they're being graded, but the vast majority of what's being graded, shout out to oh man, what's that website called? That GemRate. GemRate is one of those great resources in the industry that shows the information of like how many cards are being graded, named Charizard, named Pikachu in this year that they were printed, in this what's the PSA 10 rate, what's the PSA 9 rate, so much great data. And the vast majority of what's being graded is ultra modern. That's just where the focus is, where the hype is, where all that is. So that's where I do a large portion of my business. Not all of it by any means, but earlier on, like as far as collector Dan, the 2014 to 2020 Dan, where was I focused then? And I do hold some. I have some. I call it more like long-term inventory now. It gets better tax treatment that way than calling it a collection. But my passion, my nostalgia, my value is in WotC. It's in Gold Stars. It's in the, I don't want to say better as if it's an absolute universal thing, but to me, the better things are those more historic. And I mean, you start talking the plasma sets, I think of the secret rare Charizard and the secret rare Blastoise, and every era has something. Like at one point, my collection consisted of, I wanted every chase card from every era in PSA 9, and you've got them all. Your biggest English. So you went with binders of everything not graded. I went for like the chase cards only. I had every legend, every prime, every level X, every old school EX, every gold star, every WotC Hollow, first edition in PSA 9. It was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cards. Once I reached that peak, once I opened every box, once I hit that summit, it was just like, this is too much. This is a lot financially and just volumetrically, I guess. And then the boom happened, and I didn't have a massive financial like wealth to justify the amount of money. Like even today, it's not so bad because it's inventory these days. But in 2020, the portion of my net worth that was in cardboard was very uncomfortable for me, and it just felt way too risky for me and my family. So I feel like I'm going different directions from where the question was originally focused. But yeah, where I started was that I think it's like a funnel. It's like a big funnel. And ultra modern, 151, newest set, Paldean Fates, even Scarlet and Violet, the video games. That's where everyone is going to start. When I got back into it, I remember Phantom Forces was the newest set, and I opened some of it. And some amount of people that start at the top of the funnel, they might fall out of the funnel. They might hang out there for a few years. Not all of them, but some percent will work their way down. At the very bottom of the funnel, you have the PokeFlips podcast and you have Koffee Talks. At the top of the funnel, you have PokeRev and you have Scarlet and Violet Paldean Fates. In the middle of the funnel, you have Plasma Storm. You have some of these more like mid-sized YouTube channels, and I'm kind of linking in the video games and the YouTube space and all these different things, but it takes a much deeper level of engagement that not everyone will get to, but some amount do. Some fraction, some portion, no idea what that percentage would be, but some amount make it down the funnel and find a whole lot of history and a whole lot of stuff, and they have an appreciation for it.
So I apologize. I just have to be real with everybody. I get most of what you say, but not a lot of it because of the technical stuff. So if I ask a question, the audience thinks I'm an idiot, just take me as an idiot or realize I didn't honestly hear it. You said something, Dan, at one point. What you said is, I think that earlier on you referred to the fact that you sold a lot of your early stuff because you realized, that's what people do when they do a business. They say some of the stuff has to go to flip to make the money. And that's something we've talked about as well. Did you say if you had now, when you got to this point, when you got all these, PSA 9s and all the chase cards and everything, did you actually say if you ended up then, you talked about 2020, did you sell them? Did you sell off a lot of that stuff to capitalize on the market prices so you could then, take that money out of the cardboard and or put it in retirement plans or put it into newer inventory and that kind of thing?
Yeah, late in 2020 was when I started first. Again, very uncomfortable with what portion of my net worth was in cardboard. I am very much a saver. I'm very much traditionally like financially minded towards maxing out your retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, all that good stuff. And I was on track and I was doing all that. But when Pokemon 10x, 20x in the span of a year, a lot of stuff, it was already nearing the point where I had a hard time justifying the value I had tied up in all of it. And a time or two, I'm looking at my whole collection. I'm like, I could sell this and I could pay off my house at like 28, 29, 30 years old. I could sell everything and I could pay off my house. Then 2020 happened. Not only could I sell everything and pay off my house, I could sell off a tiny fraction of what I had and pay off my house. So I did that and I sold a fair bit more and I just built a nice financial foundation. 2021, a mix of my side hustle finances being very strong and then certain things that went on at work. And I really started more getting the idea that like, I think I want to take the leap and do this full time. So to allow myself to take that risk, I really needed to de-risk a lot before I could allow myself. And if I'm making an engineer's salary that is fairly stable, fairly safe, I can justify having more risk in non-traditional assets on the side thing I play with, right? But once I take my stable engineering job and I toss that aside to make money in cardboard, I don't want to exponentiate the risk by having like all that net worth in cardboard as well. You know what I'm saying? So I just had to, for myself, pull a lot of the money off the table. I didn't believe in it either. Like there are still cards today that are a fair bit higher. Like I'm still shocked by a lot of the values that a lot of these cards have, even after they've fallen a fair bit, a lot of them from 2020 highs. So I just don't personally value them much, especially, I mean, I was selling $1,000 PSA 10 Jungle Eevees and Pikachus, and I was selling $7,000-8,000 PSA 9 base unlimited Charizards, and I just didn't believe it could hold. So when faced with a market that values something massively more than you do, I think the logical thing is to just sell and then try to park your money where you find more value, where you think the market might be undervaluing something.
Right. Yeah. Dan Norton, thank you for never suggesting the timing for me to sell any of my extras back in 2020 and 21 when we hit the peak. It's nice to have.
I didn't know. I didn't sell mine
What?
either.
The peaks become obvious in hindsight.
Yeah, I didn't sell my stuff
I don't know.
either.
In my profession, the funniest conversations you ever have with clients, I'm a financial advisor for those of you who might not know. So the funniest conversations you have with clients are when you're targeting 6 or 7 or 8% a year, whatever the rate of return is that they need to reach a comfortable financial retirement, and understanding that the stock market is nothing more than legalized gambling. And then you tell the clients that, guess what? The way you get the 6, 7, or 8% a year is you're going to get it, but you'll never get 8% a year straight up. You'll make 12, then you'll lose 4, then you'll make 16, then you'll lose 12. It's an average over the span of time. And then you go through a couple of strong years or whatever, where it's 15 or 20% up, or then maybe you have a down year. And then all of a sudden, when the year comes and it goes really big and you're not aggressive enough in your asset allocation, they're like, why weren't we more aggressive? What were you doing there? And they forget about the fact that it's all legalized gambling because they feel like, oh, I missed an opportunity. So, all of the things that you're talking about, Dan at KetchumAll, because there's another guy out there named Dan too, are smart. And I hope everybody's really understanding the wisdom. Wisdom is not a chronological age thing either. It's just a lot of it's life experience and mentality. And, here's a little bit more conservative slant opinion from a guest. And I'm very much of the same type of, thinking and understanding the risks when we're faced with all of this. At the end of the day, in the Pokemon hobby, it's cardboard. It is a piece of cardboard. And, you better insure it heavily so you don't have a fire somewhere, and you better understand that it's, like any other thing, can go up and down. So your points are all well stated and well taken, and I appreciate them. I do want to finish on the Plasma Storm aspect, because I go back to that for just a moment. I'm making up Plasma Storm. Put in Phantom Forces, put in anything else you want. It doesn't matter. Whenever you have an inventory that's older, and it's sitting there, and calling it long-term inventory to make sure you don't run afoul of the IRS, which makes good sense. When do you get to a point where you say, I could wait 10 years, this might be great, but gosh, I need to flip because I need to buy more 151 because the distributor just offered it to me, and that's what everybody still wants. Modern. Are you just fortunate enough at this point, because you've got these other things to be able to monetize, that you're like, hey, I don't need to worry about that. Fortunately, I can hold long-term inventory. I'm still getting enough of the other stuff. Or do you ever have to sit there and contemplate and say, I could double and triple my allocation for modern if I was willing to get rid of some of this other stuff and not wait for it to go up in 5 or 10 or 15 years?
Yeah, I'm definitely very fortunate, just timing wise. Like I'm at the perfect age. Luck had it to where I happened upon my binder at the right time to re-enter, so that I would be 6 years ahead of a monumental boom that no one could have seen coming in the way that it did. So I was very fortunate to time everything to where my finances are just in a spot where I can always be patient. And I think this is generally, when you look at the local game store, the LGS model, generally it's a pretty cash poor industry. And being able to have the runway, have the financial foundation, have the ability to hold tight. Going back, I'm like an episode and a half behind you guys. So unfortunately, I didn't see the recent one where you guys talked about grading yet. But I did see the one where you guys talked with Alex. And Alex is very big on, given enough time, every box has always gone up, right? Sure, there's the few year span at the start of it where base jungle and fossil went down 50, 60, 80%, whatever it was. They went down quite a bit. Liquidity went away. It was a rough go for Pokemon for quite a while. But historically speaking, as of today, they're all up. I feel quite confident in the brand and the IP. I think Pokemon will outlive me. So largely my way of thinking is, as long as I can be patient enough, buy it right. Don't just buy anything at any price, because what you pay matters. And I'm in it wholesale. So I'm getting stuff not at completely the ground floor. I mean, things turn dark at certain times to where a consumer can get, right now, I mean, consumers can buy Scarlet and Violet base. Consumers can buy Peldi Evolved and some of these different sets for cheaper than I paid through my distributor. But yeah, I'm quite confident in Pokemon, in everything as a whole. If I can just have the liquidity, have the cash flow to be able to be patient, sit on that, I think it'll be beneficial to me. And there's a lot of businesses that just start up that LGS. They base all their financial models, if they even make any, on a 6-month 12-month euphoric period of the pandemic where everything was just bonkers, and they try to like build a business around that unsustainable nature, and it's just not going to happen. And I was there from 2014 to 2016. I wasn't full time, but like I know what things normally look like and feel like, and I think over time I've gotten a pretty good grasp on what feels right price wise and what feels wrong. And if it's something that I can just do over and over, if it's easy come, it's easy go. Like let go quickly what you can replace quickly. Like the easiest thing right now is 151 because my distributors have it. They don't have it in high quantity, but I can literally just buy 151, immediately sell it, immediately buy it, immediately sell it. That I sell quickly because it's just 100% replaceable. If I've got a Flashfire box, a Phantom Forces box, if I've got a Plasma Storm box, I can't just get that at any time in any quantity. So if I have something that's a bit more special, a bit more scarce, a bit more hard to find, one, I'm going to try to make a little more margin on it, and two, I'm not going to be in a huge rush to get it out the door, right? Because it's harder to replicate, and generally speaking, if Pokemon continues to be strong and go on into the future and grows, again back to that funnel, some amount of people will find their way down that funnel. Someone eventually will want that product, very likely, and it's just less likely to go down drastically over any period of time.
Would you change that opinion if you didn't have the capital? So here's my question. You can buy all the 151 you want, but now you're limited in capital. And you say, gosh, everything I buy, make 10% on, 20% on, whatever the number is. And that's only, to make that, I only sell it for $20 or $30 more. But I go back to this Flashfire box and I got to sell it for, $1,000 more, 15, $500 more, something much more hard to sell for. It's a much more expensive box. Would that change your thinking? Would you say, gosh, maybe I would start selling some of that older stuff because I see so much demand now and here, and I can take home this income and this, this cash flow versus waiting for all these people to, so to speak, find their way into the funnel?
Yeah, if I was more limited on capital, I'd probably even exist higher percentage wise in just ultra modern, because like the less capital you have, the more restricted your cash flow is. It's more important you're immediately turning things out the door, right? So I'm able to buy some of those higher margin, some of those slower burn type collections, and I'm able to sit on them as a buy it now listing, and not just like, if you look at ultra modern, I would feel way more comfortable auctioning a case of Evolving Skies than I would auctioning a box of Plasma Storm. Most of those older, slightly more niche, smaller market, higher dollar amount things, you need to be patient. You need to buy it now. You need to throw the listing out there and wait for your buyer to find you. All that ultra modern stuff, ultra modern, ultra liquidity, you can chuck anything to auction, not anything, but a lot of things to auction that will just get 80-90% of market value. So I do kind of a blend of some portion of the newer stuff, high liquidity, low margin, and then I also blend in some mix of like the higher margin. Some would say higher risk, some would say lower risk, but like just a different, definitely a different speed, a different, what is it? What's the saying? Fast nickel, slow dime. So I'm doing some of the fast nickel modern, and I'm doing some of the slow dime, more vintage, promo, higher end stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've seen recently with a lot of the higher end stuff, especially when it comes to like Japanese trophy cards and stuff, the ones that are hitting auction are going for so much lower than the ones that are just being waited on and going through private sales later. And we're talking like potentially tens of thousands of dollars in some cases over a card or two, just because you need to wait and you need to give people a chance to make sure they've got the money ready. And when we're
Yep.
talking about these high dollar amounts, a 7-day auction or a 10-day auction, or I mean, even something like a PWCC auction where maybe it gives you a month's notice or something, it's just not enough time for a lot of people to be able to get that money together to be making these offers and making these payments.
Mm-hmm.
Do you worry?
Yeah, I've always been one slanted more towards buy it nows than auctions.
What can you say that again, Dan? That part, please.
Yeah, I've always been primarily buy it now. My business is probably 98% buy it now, is maybe 2% auctions. Very, very rarely do I do them.
Yeah, auctions are very much a crapshoot in the sense of on any given night kind of thing. And and I'll talk to people that are much more, their pay grades are much more higher in the industry and hobby than I am, and we talk all the time about how they'll say, look, it's just auctions have no that reliability factor is much different. So you don't you lose the control in a sense. Dan, tell us what buying collections, buying those kinds of things. There's so much worry by folks like you, folks like me, other larger buyers these days about resealing boxes and that kind of stuff. What is your feeling on that? Is there anything you won't buy anymore? Like, do you just believe the story of the, grandma had it in the closet, and so it's a perfect Crystal Guardians box, and you look at it and you say, looks perfect, so I'll take that $15,000 gamble? Or is there any point at this point where you're saying, nope, I just won't buy that stuff anymore? Or is there a point when you actually can sort of say, well, from this point back, I worry much more, but this point forward, I still don't think that the bad actors have gotten involved in Sun and Moon and Forward or anything when it comes to resealing that we'll find out years from now.
Provenance is big. I mean, you've obviously had the big news recently, and congrats on that. The whole pre-release riot shoe, having the history, having the chain of custody of where an item has been. There are some sources out there that I have in front of me right now. I probably over the past 3 years since I've been on YouTube, I've cracked maybe a dozen base set unlimited boxes. I've probably cracked maybe another dozen between Jungle and Fossil First Edition. Years back, during the period 2014 to 2020, started that 2014, 2015, I was buying those boxes for 400, 500 bucks. And I was opening, grading a bunch, making margin, just like selling PSA 10 Lapras for. So I was arbitraging on a budding market of like grading these things. And that's how I kind of funded my whole goal of like opening every box, was basically just buying and breaking Fossil and Jungle boxes. So having opened several dozen WotC boxes, and then literally one of every set of the whole run, I'm quite confident in my ability to authenticate a box. Not confident enough to spend someone else's money on one. Not confident enough to say like, oh yeah, go ahead, that's 100% sure. I'm confident enough for me to risk my own capital. And if the provenance isn't there, one thing that I've done, having the YouTube channel, having the connections, having the relationships, I'm able to sell heavy packs to people who want to go for that gamble. I'm able to have the platform to be able to. So if there's any question, it's like we do it in person. We open it. We weigh everything out. Maybe we open a light pack. I've done that in person with people, like say at a Collecticon. And here's the $100 bills. Here's the box. We're going to do it together. I take my money back. You take your resealed product if we find out it's resealed. And I've thankfully never had an issue. Years back on eBay, there was a time or two that I bought like what was blatantly a fake box. eBay stood in my favor. But so yeah, my take on it is like I'm quite confident in myself. But even with that said, I open pretty much everything I buy. I open it to just sell the components. Unfortunately, and this ties in well with the whole sheet thing, right? Like one sheet, historic piece. It's a great piece, and it's kind of a shame, but the whole is not worth more than the sum of its parts. Many, many times in Pokemon, you have one sealed booster box, a great historic collectible. Within that, though, you could have 12 great holographic cards that will please 12 different collectors. And you can have 24 sealed packs, maybe 8 artworks of sealed packs that will please 8 different pack art collectors, right? So we just live in this reality where oftentimes cannibalizing the whole will generate money because you can disperse that. It's almost like buying a big collection and breaking it down, buying a box, breaking it, buying a sheet, cutting it. Like there's a lot of analogs between all of that stuff.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's not an argument that you hear that often. And I guess maybe it depends on at what point you break off from WotC to the next, to the to all these different eras of boxes. Usually you hear,
Oh, like an EX Deoxys box, or yeah, certain boxes would absolutely be. That's the thing with
yeah,
Woxy. It's so much more heavily printed. It's more, and someday the well will run dry, right? We don't know when, but like an EX Deoxys box, to be honest with you, I probably just wouldn't touch one because you could not make margin breaking it, and I would just be so afraid to spend 40 grand or whatever it is on a box.
yeah, no, and that's the reason I was questioning just a little bit because,
Yeah,
I mean, different opinions, obviously, and then people have different methods of selling. If you have a way to sell packs at a higher value, the people that do that most notoriously, and I don't mean that in the bad way, with notoriety, are the live streamers, right? They seem to have more folks
yep.
that are willing to spend a little bit more money and are willing to gamble on a lot of these more expensive packs, and so they're often the ones looking to break the higher value boxes. But I think most of us don't have that following, or enough customers to say, well, we're going to spend $500 on a pack or $1,000 on a pack to justify whatever that price of the box is. So again, different business models allow
Yeah.
you more stuff, and as well as if you're opening packs and you can grade cards and you're getting tens, then that's another way to talk about what you're talking about, from taking the whole and breaking it down into the parts. Um, let's talk about
Yeah.
that for just a quick second, because since anytime you bring it up, then you're on the stand and you shouldn't have opened the can of worms. And so now the attorneys are going to just fight you tooth and nail. You're in real trouble here, slippery slope. So I went to law school years ago, both Dan's, and none of it's important at this point, and except for the people, the haters that are going to come after me. I'm coming right back after you. I've got a law background. Don't tempt me. So Dan at KetchumAll, I probably forgotten the question. I talked myself right through it. What do you think about this whole thing with authentication and cutting sheets and the pre-release? Are you okay with this stuff, or are you on the other side of the bandwagon and it shouldn't be done and blah blah, that kind of stuff? Just your opinions, or don't state them. I don't care, whatever.
I'm okay with it all, right? Like CGC is their own company. Well, anyone who owns a given item, if you own a sheet, it's your sheet. You can do what you want with it. If you find a company that is willing to put their name behind it and say this is the proper materials, this is maybe little nitpicky things about, in a perfect world they should denote it better and they should label things better on the cards maybe. And I'm saying this not even knowing exactly what they denote on the various labels and stuff. I have quite a few public gripes with grading card companies. That said, they help me in my business make money, transact more easily with my buyers. So like I do business with grading card companies. But yeah, overall, in a perfect world, it would be great if someone would be out there to preserve sheets. I mean, Rusty has a great sheet collection, but if I had those sheets and I had the capital and had the ability to retain them, I would probably tend towards keeping them in that state. But I would be business minded, and upon going to sell them, I would be aware of what they could likely achieve as 121 or however many individual units it could be versus the one. I would shop it around as a sheet. I would likely find no buyer at any reasonable fraction of what I could get cutting it up. So I would probably opt for the same route, to be honest. And like, if it was such an abominable thing, if it was so abhorrent and just like people wouldn't buy the product, right? Like clearly there's a consumer for that product because these things get cannibalized down to these individual square cut cards that not factory cut, whatever you want to call them. There's demand. So people will supply that demand, right? It just is what it is. Like it's not inherently good or bad. It just is.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Well, and again, and I don't know anything. That's why I'm on the podcast with Dan Norton. He's the guy that knows stuff. But it's interesting when that was the theme of the end of the grading podcast that you haven't watched yet. Don't watch it. Don't waste your time. But basically,
I'll definitely watch it.
and what I was talking about was I was theorizing on all of the things that are in corporate America, corporate in the world today. And my message was, it is what it is. Like everybody's concerned with, not everybody, some dramatic channels in the YouTube world are concerned with the fact that people have access and people have information and there's better prices for certain people and there's better grade and all this other stuff. And all I was saying was, guys, it is what it is, in the sense of, we can sit here and we can fret about all of it, or we can just, do our own things and whatever works for us, and not try to keep watching what everybody else is doing and thinking, God, I wish I had that too. People never believe me when I say this, so that's why I never say it. Nobody ever hears me say it, which is, I'm as jealous of everyone else's collections as they are of mine. Because there's always something someone's doing that I wish I had thought of. That's so cool. That's so neat. Oh, I wish I had all those, then that. And the point is, we can't all do it all. We all have to find what makes ourselves happy. And this whole social media thing of watching and looking and comparing ourselves is why that there's so much mental illness in the whole world today. So, I've taken that as far off the rails as you can go, but I really do believe it. Comparing and contrasting and all that isn't good. Live in your lane, enjoy what you like. And I'm in agreement with what you said, let people do their own thing and don't worry about it so much, is a much greater, to me, recipe for successful mental happiness in this hobby. So I don't know.
We've talked before about the drama channels and stuff. A lot of the people who will go up in arms about this stuff, like the cutting the sheets, they don't actually care. They just need their next video. They need their drama video. Cutting sheets has been a thing in Magic the Gathering for since it started. In Magic, people can play their decks with non-factory cut cards as long as they're the same size and have the same corners and stuff. And there's a lot of legacy players had old sheets cut. I believe Eli Cassis had unlimited print sheets cut so he could have miscut dual lands. And no one cared, because Magic wasn't a game that was, or it didn't have content built on the drama the same way that Pokemon does, where it has to be these outrageous titles and everything has to be the end of the world in order to get people to watch their videos. So it's just another symptom of that, really, I think, where it's when you need to find something to be mad at every single week, it's just whatever is there, you can find a reason to be angry at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will say that the reason I appreciate you bringing this up is because I'm going to say a couple things. Number one, this last podcast we did, I did a hypothetical section. You should watch it, Dan. It's pretty good. Don't even bother to think about watching it. So I did a hypothetical on altering cards and whether or not it was okay or not. I have no opinion. I've never altered a card. I don't care. But I like to create a little bit of dialogue so other people can comment on it. And I learn things. That's all I ever want to do. I want to learn things. I want to hear different perspectives. I want to be open to different viewpoints and continue to be a lifelong learner. So people actually came out and said, do you know that there's card altering kits? I had no idea. I didn't know those things exist, that there's some company putting out, oh, you can use these tools or whatever. But I know what's going to happen is one of these dramatic channels is going to take clips from that, and they're not going to say the 3 or 4 times I said, this is hypothetical. They're going to say, David says you should be altering. So that's the drama part that disgusts me in all of it. And that's why you got to be true to yourself and just have your reputation behind you and not have to worry about all this stuff. So as far as the thumbnails, what bothers me there, I agree. I think people got to be careful of that. I don't know. I haven't looked at Dan at KetchumAll's channel and see how many times he uses words to get people to watch. But this week I did something I've never done. I don't even know this guy. It's me. It's like me saying Dan at KetchumAll is my best friend. God, I wish you were. I love you to death, but I don't know you that well to call you that yet. So I actually sent a message to Alex at Nostalgianomics and I said, can you tell me why the last 3 videos you have posted all have the word death, dying, or dead in them? Pokemon is dead. MetaZoo is dead. The world is dead. Investing is dead. Haven't we just gone a little bit too far? And he's like, okay, David. I go, you said on your podcast that friends call each other out. So I said, I'm now your friend. I'm calling you out. And he goes, yeah, you're right. Too negative. I got to switch it up. Don't know what I was doing. So the drama, you got to balance that drama, right? With the reality of the content. I know everybody's climbing and clinging for views, but I think if you portray yourself to be a good enough person, then you get the right kind of followers. Hopefully you don't have to rely on too much of those crazy, thumbnail type stuff.
Well, I think you need to rely on it somewhat because YouTube's algorithms, even if you build up that following, unless you do crazy thumbnails and crazy titles, sometimes YouTube just won't even show your subscribers your videos.
I don't know about that.
I don't know if anyone will be familiar with the channel, but there's a great channel out there. It's kind of like scientifically oriented called Veritasium. They have a 15 or 20-minute video on like the morality of clickbait. And I think they categorized it into two types of clickbait. One that is just completely outrageous, kind of what most people probably think of when they think of the word clickbait. Like, it has a very negative connotation. Just completely out there, not related to the video, baiting a click out of some unsuspecting consumer that isn't going to enjoy the content. Like, that's the kind of clickbait that everyone should strive to avoid. Whereas, and I'm terrible at giving like specific examples. Veritasium made a video, and I remember he titled something like, it was like throwing a basketball off a dam and trying to score a basket down several hundred feet. And I forget what the effect is called on like the way the air swirls around the ball and it makes the ball spin and go off far from on its path. He showed one title that was like literally what the video was about. This very long, dry, scientific, literally like that was what the video was about. But no one was going to click it because it was boring. It was boring science. But then when you called it like making the world's highest basketball shot, that is a clickbait title that is about what the video is about. So I think it's like, as with anything, it's not black and white. It's not binary. It's a spectrum. And there are okay and proper ways to do it. Being honest, being truthful, but being more exciting and being more succinct and being more flashy with what's actually there than just bait and switch garbage clickbait. As I think that's the negative way. The most negative way is the most people way most people take clickbait to mean. But the idea of creating a video, right? You want to bait a click. You want to get, no one can consume, no one can enjoy, no one can be educated if they don't first click. So I think it's a very interesting, stimulating conversation, and go check out that video sometime if anyone cares to.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. I got a lot of hate from people when I did. It was a video that was my Hot Gold, Soul Silver, Black Star promos, and I called the video something like only the second complete set in the world, or something like that, which it is. There's only me and David, I believe, have master setted Hot Gold, Soul Silver, Black Star promos. But everyone's like, oh, it's just it's clickbait, it's nonsense, this isn't real. It's like, no, if you actually, it's like, yeah, I'm trying to get you to watch the video, but if you watch the video, I'm not lying. You know, the title is still what the video is, but a lot of people will still just jump on the, unless it's a boring title, it's clickbait, and then when it's a boring title, the same people then, well, I'm not going to watch that, it's boring. Yeah. And I tended to find that the people who complain about you clickbaiting are never going to watch your video anyway. They just want to complain. Like in Burbank, a few weeks after that, I posted a video which a lot of my opening videos are a lot more just standard title. Like, this is the product I'm opening. You know, if you want to see that product opened, here it is. I don't go out my way of like, oh, mad pulls or whatever. And then someone commented, he's like, I see you've learned your lesson from what everyone commented on the last video. You did exactly what we told you. And I was like, all right, well, this is a bit better then. So if I did exactly what you've told me and did exactly what everyone wanted, what did you think of this video? Then radio silence. Because obviously, they still didn't watch. They don't actually, they're never actually going to watch the videos. They just want to complain about something.
Well,
and going back to what we were talking about earlier, I think just this age of social media and this age of Twitter and all these different things, or X, whatever it's called now, everyone has to have an opinion on everything. It's like these things, people that aren't even affected by them, they'll never own one. They'll never, like, they don't even care to own one, yet they care to throw in their 2 cents. It's just strange.
Yeah,
we saw that with the pre-release Raichu a lot, where it was 90% of you, 99% of you commenting this are never going to have the opportunity to own one, and the other 1% had the opportunity to buy one, didn't, and are now really salty about it.
Yeah, and I mean, and the other thing too is, I just think everybody, it's kind of understandable. I mean, number one, everybody wants to be heard, everybody wants to be seen. We all like a little bit of attention in some fashion, and that's just human nature. So I think people's comments, I wish they were more open-minded just in general. I'm just so liberal in things because I'm not a person that believes I should be telling other people what they should be doing with their life, and what's okay and what's not okay. I just sort of, my lines are, is it legal or not legal? And that's it. I'd say the same thing to my kids. I don't have to agree with what they're doing, but as long as they're doing the best they can and they're not doing something illegal, then, I may not agree with it, but it is what it is. So, and then you've got the second part of all this, which is attention span, and people don't have the time, the attention span. And, I did a rant a couple of weeks ago just on how your phone should be used for educational purposes, and got some great comments from people that said that's exactly what they've done and it's changed their life, all the learning. When you talk about it, Dan, when you say, hey, I love to watch the content, I mean, you're doing something valuable with your phone and social media and your computer to learn more about the hobby, to engage more with other people, to make true hobby friends. Those are all such great things, rather than just going out there and saying, well, I'm just watching, I'm going to find criticizing and the rest of it. But now the controversy that you've alluded to a couple times, so I hit you on the top with a question, and you took it a different direction. You opened that slippery slope. So we're going to MetaZoo. I know nothing about MetaZoo. You said you did 95, 96% of your business in Pokemon, a little bit in MetaZoo. Some of the, all these guys are now posting this last week, MetaZoo is dead. And then, of course, the clickbait is Pokemon next. And I know this is a Pokemon podcast, but I think it's interesting. We had Alex talked about One Piece, and there's all of these different gaming things. Dan's always talking about when he's buying things, he looks for all the old games that are no longer in any valid fashion, just so he can buy the cheapest things out there. So Dan at KetchumAll, what is the deal with MetaZoo, and is your 4% in business going to go to 0%? Is it really dead, or is this all clickbait?
It's funny. I had a live stream Wednesday night where I just kind of did like a send off. There were 6 main like core sets, and 3 of which I was actually a partner with MetaZoo. So with Pokemon, I'm a retailer, I guess. I buy Pokemon prints. They sell to a distributor. I buy from the distributor, and then I retail it to the consumer. Right? That's like a very typical chain of chain of command, whatever, movement of product. With MetaZoo, I actually was a partner. And how I became a partner, I basically just like, hey, I kind of like what you guys are doing. Can I become a partner? I have a little bit of a social media following, and I was able to buy product cheaper. So while distribution sold MetaZoo product maybe in the 70s, I was buying it in the 50s. So I just saw a business opportunity. When I was younger, Pokemon was the only thing for me. A lot of people did a little bit of Magic, did a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh, maybe a little bit of Digimon, whatever it may be. I never got into anything else, just Pokemon for cardboard. In my years doing Pokemon, the past several years, I've come across collections of Pokemon, primarily Pokemon, a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh, a little bit of Magic, a little bit of Dragon Ball Z Super, Dragon Ball Z Score, a little bit of Naruto, all different kinds of things. And I've dipped my toes into them. I've looked at, nothing ever really caught me for whatever reason, for various reasons that I've detailed, and I don't need to turn this into a huge segment. But certain things with MetaZoo clicked. I just genuinely enjoyed it. I thought they were doing some things right. Absolutely. I didn't agree with everything they did. Definitely doing some things wrong. But I enjoyed it. And Wednesday night, I did a send-off stream. Opened one of every 6 boxes. I pulled like, one thing that I liked that they did, Extreme Chase. So this card, I know Dan will know this way better than me. There was an era of Pokemon where they inserted the box topper. I think for certain sets, we had like, you were guaranteed to get, I think Power Keepers might have been like a Pikachu, or Delta Species might have been a Pikachu on the top of every box when you opened it. Wasn't Stormfront, was the Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard, was that a box topper? Those were just secret.
No, they were secret rares. The only times they've done box toppers was, so Legendary Collection and the E series had the jumbo box toppers.
The big ones,
one of 4 different ones in the box, and then through a lot of the EX era sets had box toppers. It wasn't every EX era, it was towards the end, and I think they stopped it a few sets before the end of the EX era, and it was guaranteed which one you get.
So they were
every
all
single
guaranteed.
box you open is going to have this card sitting loose on top of it, yeah.
Whereas the e-reader, the jumbo box toppers were all one of 4, right? And I think there were 3
Yeah.
sets that did it, so there were 12 for the whole run.
4 sets that did it. It was Legendary Collection and then the 3 e-reader sets.
Oh, okay. So yeah. Anyways, MetaZoo, their first set, they had a box topper, and within that, it was actually a sealed pack. 25,000 boxes. That was one thing I liked about MetaZoo too. Known print runs. I came from coins. In coins, you have mintages of every year. The San Francisco Mint, the Denver Mint, the Philadelphia Mint. I mean, if you go way back to Morgan City, you have the Carson City Morgan dollars, and there were different mints throughout the different time. But anyways, known print runs of things was one of those few things that I enjoyed of MetaZoo that Pokemon didn't have. And 25,000 boxes created for Cryptid Nation First Edition, 100 box toppers randomly seeded. So 1 out of 250 boxes that you open will have this card. I opened the first box to start my stream. I opened the box topper. I pull at one time that was like a $10,000 card. No idea what it goes for today. Maybe $1,000, maybe less, maybe a little bit more. But anyways, having that just extreme chase, like Moonbryon, that's a chase. That's 1 in 30 boxes on average. This is 1 in 250 boxes. That's just another level, right? So certain things I enjoyed about it. Bigfoot, the whole cryptid thing. I live in upstate New York, deep in the woods. Bigfoot's kind of not a massive deal, but he's a little bit of a urban legend, whatever, around various parts of the world. And I just connected with it and I enjoyed it. And stonking and scalping and all these derogatory things that we talk about in Pokemon, maybe they were magnified because of when MetaZoo was born. And maybe some of them, maybe too many of them were fed into by the company itself. And again, we don't need to get, or we could get into all that as much as you want to, or as little as you want to, but that is a chapter of my business that might be done and it might not be, because right now everything's just swirling as things do. And is MetaZoo sold? The owner was kicked out maybe, and maybe someone else is buying it, and what's going to happen? And I'm more like, same thing in Pokemon. There's all those channels that will just take one hint of rumor, one hint of, and just run with it and make 30 videos about it. I'm more like sit back, wait for the data to come to me, and then adapt to the new information and figure out how I'm going to proceed. I have this new information that MetaZoo is closed as of Monday, but right in that announcement, it said that it might be sold and might continue in the future. So I'm just kind of waiting. But funny thing, the most bullish thing to happen to MetaZoo in the past 12 months, what was it closing? Because the amount of orders I shipped out this week at MetaZoo, albeit at a lower price than they were priced last week, was fascinating.
Yeah.
People are trying to just take that risk of, if it comes back, if it does come back, I want to have my stock ready to go.
Or if it...
Some amount, absolutely speculating, some amount... Yeah, it's hard to say what the split is, right? Who's speculating, who's collecting, who's investing. Some of these things, I mean, I didn't sell mine that cheaply, but some booster boxes are going for $10, $15. Some of them are going for quite low. And at that point, it's like, I never gave MetaZoo a shot because it was always too crazy. Why don't I buy one and just see what it's all about? And maybe $10. It's like, let me not go out to lunch today and eat a bowl of ramen instead, and I'll buy a MetaZoo booster box. And
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for $10, I've bought games that looked and were worse than MetaZoo. I mean, I've never made a secret that I've never been a fan of MetaZoo, but for $10, I've bought games that I know were worse and just opened a booster box just because for $10. Like you say, it's $10. Who cares? It's opening a booster box of something rubbish. So yeah, if people were dropping them that low, I can definitely see why more people were trying to get into it now, because it's no money basically.
I don't think you said this. I love watching these podcasts back because I can actually hear everything you guys are saying. That last 10 minutes, I heard nothing. So again, forgive me. I am going to enjoy watching it back. I want to know why in 2 minutes or less from either one of you, hopefully Dan at Catch 'em All, he's more interesting. I want to know why the game, if you're saying that it's likely that it's not going to be there anymore, MetaZoo, why did it fail? So, and the reason I asked this specifically is because if you answered it, my apologies, I don't think you did, but Dan at Norton always says that it starts and ends with the game itself, the gameplay. And so I don't know if there was a gameplay attached to it or was more just a collectible thing. But in your estimation, when you look at One Piece or you look at the next 10 games that are going to come out. Why did this not go? Why is MetaZoo not? Why is it fading from popularity rather than going the other way?
A lot of mismanagement, absolutely. They were ones to promise way too much and then drastically underdeliver. Missed deadlines on everything. There are products from a year ago that I'd ordered that never came and seemingly never coming now. So definitely just bad management. And one thing that I'll say to maybe give them some credit, like I think they launched, and this might sound it might sound almost completely opposite, and I understand that opinion, that take. I think MetaZoo being born into the boom, being born into this period of like stonking free money, like pandemic craze. Yeah. I think it was like a double-edged sword. One, it rocketed it to success. Some would deem success, right? Like the Kickstarter booster box, the Kickstarter was not funded. Sub 2,500 were printed. The next set, 25,000, then 50,000, then 100,000. I think the boom propelled it close enough to the sun, and they got their heads big enough, and then they got burned. They kept the print run too high for too long. And so the thing that made them, like many people would say the boom made them. If not for the boom, nothing would have happened. And maybe that's true. I think the boom made them big enough to where their death was certainty because they just got too like swept up in it. And it's a hard thing to navigate. Credit to Pokemon because they're printing 10 billion cards a year and it doesn't seem to be too much. One thing that I constantly say, this stuff is cardboard. This stuff has an intrinsic value of 0. It's all inherently risky. You need someone to buy it from you for more down the line. And I think Pokemon is navigating it very well. There's a number of Pokemon cards that could be printed, and I think a lot of people don't believe this. There's a number that could be printed that would kill Pokemon. Maybe that's 1 trillion. Maybe that's 100 times where they're at. Maybe, but there's a number that would kill it. Because any collectible, if everyone can have it, no one wants it. No matter how many people say, I would buy it all if it went to 0. Like, a lot of people would be gone if they could have everything too easily.
Yeah, wow. That's just some really interesting commentary. And I think it's...
Well, I'll say what I was looking at from, let's say I wasn't involved in MetaZoo, but looking at it from the outside, I think it does come back to what I've been saying a lot when we've talked about dead games, is that it was not focused on players at all. Every post I ever saw about MetaZoo was just, I've opened this rare card, I'm selling this rare card, I've graded this a 10. I saw basically no one playing it, and the people I did see playing it, it was... the attitude towards it was, oh, this is a fine game that I'll play once or twice with my friends. I heard about the few tournaments that they did. People just weren't interested in it that much. There were issues going on with that. And a lot of just the design of the cards in terms of how they played as gameplay mechanics. So many of them just had what I would call as the birthday Pikachu problem. Like, people know the birthday Pikachu card. The idea was it had an attack where it did 10 damage, but if it was your birthday, it did 50 more damage. Obviously, it was banned from all tournaments because you can't police that in a tournament setting. But when I'm looking through, if I looked through MetaZoo, which I did when it first came out, I looked through it, there's 25 to 50% of the cards in the first set had some weird effect like that, where it changed the effect of the card based on the clothes you were wearing, or if you had been to a funeral in the last few weeks, or if there were balloons in the room. When you've got that kind of thing, you cannot have a competitive tournament scene because the game just isn't built for that. And the game was so heavily geared towards investors. Like, I know that I've talked about this on Quest for 20 with Jordan recently, actually, comparing MetaZoo and Flesh and Blood. When they both jumped in very, very early, they kind of took a similar tactic in that they both got alpha investments on board. That was one of their first big launches for both of them, is that Rudy from Alpha Investments was a big part of it. And he has cards in both games. There's a Flesh and Blood card that's Rudy that was for his Patreon people or whatever. And there's, I think MetaZoo has a couple now. But Flesh and Blood, as soon as they started to grow as a game, they hugely had to change their plan because investors were killing the idea of a gameplay because they were buying up all the first edition print runs, and they couldn't get people playing the game because players couldn't get the cards. Whereas MetaZoo, it seemed they just kept focusing on that investor side, and like the company themselves were putting out this is going to hold value, it's going to worth so much more. This card, this is our Black Lotus. It was what, the Mothman or whatever, I think, from the first set. They were like, this is our Charizard, this is our Black Lotus. And investors, when they go into a game, it seems like investors, if they're trying to jump in a game at level 1, they're going for the first set. Like, you're talking about those Kickstarter edition boxes of set 1, first edition of set 1. Like, yeah, investors are heavy on that, but how many investors are buying set 5, set 6? They're not. And collectors as well, you say collectors are going for the rarer stuff, so they're going for this stuff that you pull from the boxes that investors are buying because they want the rarer stuff, or they want these box toppers and things like you were talking about. They're not going to open 10 boxes of set 6 if it's nowhere near as popular as set 1, if it's not as valuable. You need players. Players are the ones who are going to be buying every set as it comes out, because you have to have a tournament scene. You need to make demand for that set the day it comes out, and the way you do that is you say, okay, here's our tournament scene. If you don't have the cards from the new set, you're going to be at a disadvantage to the people who do have the cards from the new set. And if you have no tournament scene, you have nothing like that, and you're not focused at all on players, you're never going to keep growing those new sets. And I think that's the reason a lot of games have died. It's not just MetaZoo. MetaZoo, obviously, arrogance and other stuff, I think, played into it. But I think that's a huge, huge reason that MetaZoo died, and why we see a ton of games die. I mean, I've said that about like so much, but I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. You need to get players in your game.
And I don't know, by the way, I'm sitting here as the audience, knowing nothing about any of the stuff you guys are talking about, but I will say, I guess I don't know that MetaZoo has died, right? Because all I've read is, and all I've seen is clickbait. So we'll find out if it's actually true in time. But wait,
Dave,
don't.
I'll explain to you, Dave. No, I'm going to explain this bit to you. The reason people are saying it's died now is this: the company has come out and said, we are no longer producing MetaZoo. We are liquidating the company that was making it. They've shut down all their social medias. They've deleted their Discord and their Twitter. That's why people are saying it's died. So from that perspective of, is the card game alive and continuing to be made? No, like, that's flat out. It is currently dead. It is currently not a in production product. So that
we can't even say it's in the hospital on life support, Dan. I mean, we're going straight up to 6 feet under.
Yes, they deleted their Discord and Twitter and said, "What, this company no longer exists."
Okay, wait. Hold up. How many celebrities have deleted their social media because they've got some flack for something and they eventually come back? Okay, I got to move on to Dan at KetchumAll. Just let it go.
All right, future Dan, who is editing this, jumping in real quick just to say that David forgot to do the giveaway this week. I say, well, not really forgot. We were just having a bit too much of a good time chatting with Dan. So what we're going to need for this week, you're going to need to send David your favourite Pokemon and why it is your favourite Pokemon. Send that to him on Instagram, dperson1, and of course leave a comment on this video too. If you do both those things, you'll be entered into David's weekly giveaway, and you do, of course, get a bonus entry if you are sharing some of the Coffee Talk stuff or sharing some of David's personal stuff on Instagram. So make sure to jump into that, and you may be with a chance of winning.
Dan at KetchumAllCollectibles. I'm going to always be collectibles with you, my buddy. Will you tell us what is different about your business? Why do I want to buy something from you on eBay? And I'll just talk about myself. So I actually contacted Dan about a couple of weeks ago because I've been perusing Facebook listings and eBay listings and large wholesale listings looking for some stuff to put away because, why I'm liquidating all my stuff at 62 and I decided I'm going to throw some investments in the closet for 5 years. So I know Dan for a few years and I trust him implicitly. So I called him and said, hey, can you tell me what you got in cases and that kind of thing and put away some booster boxes? So I actually reached out to him directly and we were able to work around some of the fees on eBay and some of that stuff too. But Dan, talk about what makes your eBay listings different than other people? Are you lower priced? Do you have better inventory? How do they look you up there? And who do you want to contact you directly versus it's a pain in the butt if they do? You don't need everybody just jumping into your DMs, that kind of stuff.
Generally speaking, and I will say I made an exception for you because we have a history. We've done some deals, and I don't go off eBay, generally speaking. And one thing that comes up fairly frequently these days, I don't have, and I can't fully communicate everything that goes on with eBay. But as with anything else, there is a public rate, there is a known fee, 13%. If you're a store, it's 12%. Not everyone pays
Right.
that. There are different mechanisms, there are different contracts, there are different relationships where at times people sell for significantly cheaper. One thing primarily that is just public that I can talk about, the eBay vault. I do a buy it now consignment service through the eBay vault where I take in people's cards and I sell them. Bigger name, bigger eBay, bigger history, feedback, all that stuff, and not having to deal with I won't get too deep into it, but like not having to deal with, some people can't because they're international. Some people don't want to because they don't have the time, whatever it may be. So for a few percentage points, I'll sell your card for you. The eBay vault is zero fees, zero selling fees. If you send a card into the eBay vault, anyone can, that's US domestic, over $250, you pay $0 to sell it. So occasionally I'll get a DM. Hey, I see you got $1,000 card. Can you do 900 on Instagram? I say no, because when you buy that for 1,000 on eBay, I get 1,000, zero fees. Starting sometime later this year, there will be a 3% buyer's premium, but PayPal can't beat that. Nothing can beat that, right? Zero fees. So, some people use PayPal Friends and Family because there's zero fees there, but I have zero fees on eBay Vault. Anyone, domestic, US, has zero fees on eBay Vault. So that's one big thing. But even non-vault, some of the lower value stuff, again, they have certain mechanisms. They have certain times where they can cut a deal. So certain products that I have in there, you might think like, oh, well, let me hit up Dan. He might be able to knock 12% off. Often it's not the case. Even if it is the case, my sales volume these days, like I'm quite public. I'm quite transparent on my channel. Last year, consignments, all my own stuff, everything together, $1.4 million in total sales. Once you start getting to a large portion of sales, every state has what's called economic nexus. Every state is different depending on how much you sell into a given state. And thankfully, eBay handles all the sales tax obligations that I would have as a seller. So they collect sales tax and remit it on my behalf for people based on where they live. So if someone from California buys from me, they pay their local sales tax to eBay. eBay handles it. But if I start selling off platform, if I sell on Shopify, if I sell through PayPal, legally speaking, I have to keep track of every state and how much I sell into them. And if I cross that economic nexus, now I have to register with that state's Department of Sales Tax. And I have to just do so much more paperwork, so much more red tape. eBay handles all that. So it just administratively, tax wise, like eBay is just a very streamlined platform for all that. So I stay there.
Okay. No, and it makes sense. I think it's really an educational, diatribe that you just did, letting people know that it's just, I always liken to the haters. So I hear things from so many different, viewpoints, but it's like saying there are these other arrangements out there, and not everybody's aware of what everybody else is doing. So to presume certain things, and I read that so often in Facebook groups, why won't he lower my shipping charges to this? Why won't she do this? Because that's their business model and that's how it is. And you don't have to buy from them. You can go somewhere else. So you shouldn't really be getting into their business model as it is. What do you sell most of? Do you sell most of single cards, wholesale boxes? If you looked at your volume by just maybe category, graded, ungraded, whatever it might be, how would you kind of break that down?
I used to do all my sealed through that Troll and Toad Evo that I mentioned earlier, that's kind of being sunsetted.
Right.
So I'm in a situation where starting with like 151, right around maybe Paldea Evolved, starting not too long ago, I had to start for the first time, like physically taking all this product and selling it through my eBay. Because I used to just ship it to Kentucky, Troll and Toad, and I managed it, I priced it, I put stuff for sale, but Troll and Toad would do all the warehousing, do all the fulfillment. So it's only recently that I started doing all this sealed on my own eBay, but I'm still like it's two different things, right? Whether you're talking about dollar wise or like volume wise. Dollar wise, 90%, 80 plus percent single graded cards, especially when you tie in my consignment cards. I've done some very high end, like last year I sold on behalf of Gem Pokemon. I sold his PSA 10 base first Charizard through the eBay vault. So imagine selling a $217,500 sale and paying zero selling fees on it. And then I charged my like standard rate for the eBay vault is 5% that I charge, but it goes down drastically when you get over six figures. I didn't make anywhere near that. But yeah, so it's mostly single graded cards. As of the past 6 to 12 months, it's been an increasing portion, and it will continue to be sealed ultra modern product like booster boxes, ETB cases. And I try to stay by the case. I'm a one man operation. I don't really have the time to ship out all these individual boxes, all these individual ETBs, plus shipping really eats into it. So I try to just go by the case.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, especially, you've got to take in some realities of your time as the whole thing happens as well. So, I don't know if you talked
Mm-hmm.
about this earlier. I know we just touched, and again, I'm not, I hope I didn't miss anything, but you talked about the great percentage of what you sell is graded cards. Do you use all grading card companies? Are you just one specific grading card company? What makes the difference or choice if you use more than one?
I use PSA, BGS, and CGC. I've thought about periodically trying just to see the product, and I'm a businessman though. I think all three have applications depending on the card. Over the past 10 years, I've graded tens of thousands of cards. I think I have a pretty good eye for what's going to 10 at PSA. I use BGS primarily for that like moonshot black label. There are certain cards that have a massive premium on that. And if you're able, it is tough. I think all these, I'm one who's quite vocal against the inconsistency and the issues that all three grading card companies have. I'm not like CGC, PSA, or BGS fanboy only. All others are trash. I'm very much equal opportunity, hating on and praising each of them as they make mistakes and do right by me and the market. So I do a little bit of all of them. As far as what I prefer the clarity, the case, like viewing the actual collectible item, CGC for that. I value BGS as a business for like the moonshot opportunity of getting that black label. Some of the premiums, I mean, like the Nagabas, recently, a very recent card, the Nagaba Evolution cards, PSA 10s, $35. Black labels, $250, $200. And if you know how to pre-grade well, I'm able to get those at a 20% rate, which when you do the math, it works out to be a very lucrative thing. Small niche, it's not as big of a market as the PSA 10 market, but it has applications. CGC similarly, broadly, the market doesn't value them as much as PSA, especially CGC 10 Gem compared to the PSA 10 Gem. But there are little niches here and there. It's not as deep of a market, but especially you got to go buy it now. If you start auctioning CGC 10 pristines, you won't do as well. But like in low volume, I'm able to sell CGC 10 pristines of ultra modern cards for a drastic premium to PSA 10s, while hearing all these channels, oh, CGC sucks, no one likes it, no one, and then meanwhile I'm packing and shipping orders of CGC and Black Label and a little bit of everything for me.
Yeah, what a huge just the information. Dan and I talk a lot, and Dan is the straightest. I don't know you, Dan, so I can't compare, but I just know Dan Norton as the straightest guy I've ever known in telling it like it is and not being biased and not being affected by all the rest of the stuff. So I always like when people are really talking the practical realities and not the drama channels and what they're saying. I don't know anything about the different grading card companies except for exactly what you're saying, that there are some financial realities involved in some of these assessments. So it's just nice to hear it stated by someone who's actually in the trenches every day and not someone who's just looking at dramatizing different, one-offs and whatever to make it all seem a certain way.
Yeah, and of course, hearing someone say, all of the companies have their own problems, no company is perfect, is something you don't hear a ton of people say in the hobby because everyone has their own one, and it's like, oh well, yeah, it's PSA does the same thing that CGC does, but half the people will be like, oh no, well PSA's dead because they did this, and the other half's like, oh, CGC's dead because they did this, and
yeah,
neither are like,
yeah.
No one's looking and being like, oh, no, all of them have done it. Every grading card company has had exactly this same problem at some point.
Yeah, and Dan, you've shown yourself to be pretty flexible in your thinking and tolerance. So let me ask you just a couple of quick questions, just quick throwouts. Do you ever break slabs to look for better grades? Like, there's all this thing about resubmitting slabs to a different thing to get a better grade. When would you or would you not do that, and why?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I've graded tens of thousands of cards, mostly with PSA. Next would be CGC, then BGS. A couple years ago, I want to say it was summer of 2021, I did a large scale experiment. So I had what was all my former collection. I had all these PSA 9 first edition, largely like WotC hollows. And anyone who knows me knows that my inconsistency is just the word for all these grading card companies, and it has massive implications. I mean, there are certain cards that in a 9 they are $100, and then in a 10 they're 1,000, or like very very large multiples. So slab optimization, I called it. And some of them it wasn't PSA to PSA. Sometimes it was I've turned CGC labels into PSA because I thought the grade was going to go up. Basically, the market wants a bigger number, so you got to put it. But sometimes the company might need to see it twice, right? So I've never cracked a card more than once, but probably out of the 20, 30,000 cards that have passed through my hands, I've cracked about 200. And most of them were at one time, all in one go. And it didn't pan out that well. So few of my 9s went to 10s. More of them went to 8s. A lot of them ended up 9 again. Yeah, it wasn't that good of an endeavor. But the thing was, it was like the type of cards that are harder to replace. Like, I would never crack an ultra modern Celebrations Charizard PSA 9. Just go buy another one raw, because there's tons of them out there raw available, right? But there's been a couple times historically. I remember I bought from Gary, King Pokemon Gary, a complete PSA 9 base first edition. And the Charizard was a super clean PSA 9. It wasn't a PSA 10, but knowing the scales, knowing the market, I cracked it and got a BGS 9.5, and I sold it for quite a premium to a PSA 9 because it was a very clean example. So yeah, sometimes arbitraging between the two. Sometimes cards get lucky. Sometimes cards that, I mean, there are drastic examples out there where like a 1 gets a 10 or vice versa, whatever. But I don't think it's unreasonable to give it a second shot. If you start cracking the same card 20 times just trying to get lucky, that's where it gets a lot more like, okay, this is probably not the right way to go. But ultimately, consumers shouldn't overvalue the opinion of a grading card company. Like, you should buy the card, right? Buy the card for what it is. Just because one company puts 10 versus 9, you're going to pay 10 times, 50 times, 100 times as much. I don't do that, but some people do. So it's like, how much do you put on the consumer? It's kind of like that same morality thing of cutting up sheets and whatever else, right?
Yeah, leave it to a chemical engineer to do an experiment where you break a bunch of stuff, put it in, and see what the results are. Just record the data, Dan, and we'll see how it all turned out. Dan, you said earlier that you weigh packs in the sense of if it's heavy or light or whatever. I just always like to ask this one. So PSA grades packs, and I invariably believe that 98.5% of those packs, if not 100%, are light packs that somebody's put in to make them look better than they are, in the sense that they appear wonderful, but they're going to have nothing inside them. Do you think that's okay? Do you think that's not okay? Do you think that's a little bit misleading? What do you think about that one particular thing?
I think, so I've graded many packs over the years. They've always been light, unless they were ultra modern. I don't weigh anything. I never weighed anything like X, Y, and on. But yeah, I think every graded pack should be presumed to be light. In a perfect world, packs wouldn't be weighable. Going back to MetaZoo, just to rope that in a little bit. Pokemon could, if they cared enough, make it so hollows weren't weighable. Way back then, it would be like, obviously they can't go back in time, but it would be great in a perfect world if they were never weighable to begin with. And that was one thing with MetaZoo. As far as I understand, I don't think they were mappable. That's different. Different things went on with different sets. But so yeah, consumers should arm themselves with the information that every graded pack presumably is light. When I sell my graded packs, if anyone asks, it's like, yeah, I cracked the box, graded the lights, sold the heavies, and you're not gonna like. I think a graded pack is a valid collectible. Like, there's a demand for it. people aren't really buying graded packs to open them, generally speaking, I don't think. Maybe some people are because they worry about authenticity. Historically speaking, there's been some fake resealed packs that have entered slabs, so I'd be careful with that too. But yeah, me personally, it's all about just the seller being honest with it. And I've always been open, honest, transparent.
Yeah, the only thing which I think is just to be appreciated, I guess I wish that people wouldn't, there's going to be invariably a great large number of the population. When you say arm yourself with the information, it isn't readily written anywhere. It isn't talked about in the open necessarily. So it sure would be nice if those grading card companies, in my opinion, might say pack is presumed to be light. Even something simple, because at least it would be more real for somebody buying it or whatever, so that they understand 100% what they're buying. And they don't find out 2 years later, oh, I had no idea. I learned everything the hard way when I started in the hobby, and that was just from not knowing enough. When I would buy the finalist cards, thinking that was the best card, not knowing they were trophies. So so that cost me thousands of dollars. So I'm not one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to sit here and pontificate that I should tell a grading card company what to do, but it just seems so misleading to me to assume that everybody knows that when they're buying that beautiful pack, when it doesn't necessarily have to say it in any listing anywhere.
And then you have all the nuance and all the issues of like, well, every English set, it's 1 out of 3 roughly. But then there's Japanese sets where it's 1 out of 2. Then there's Japanese sets where it's every pack has a holo. And in a perfect world, Pokemon would have made it where the contents were just random and unable to be identified without opening the pack, right? And it's just the unfortunate world we live in that that's not the case. And unfortunately, an hour 50 deep into a podcast of this nature, the average consumer is not going to find their way there. Maybe if PokeRev were to have a scrolling banner, maybe if Deep Pocket Monster were to have a scrolling banner, if PokemonCenter.com put it on their web, like the people that need to hear this information just aren't going to hear it, right? Because they're not here. So it's like, how do you get that out there?
Yeah. Okay. And I appreciate the opinion, though. It's really important. I know we're coming towards the end very rapidly. So I just want to ask you, you haven't watched the grading video. Like I said, it's a waste of time. But assuming you had, I would ask you a question. I have not graded, well, I have not all of them, but the great bulk of all of my set cards through the years remain in binders ungraded. Is that okay, Dan at KetchumAllCollectibles, or is that just stupidity on my part to try to maybe wait for a more accurate time in the hobby, to a more generally accepted, time when there's more consistency that I think we're coming to wait to grade those cards? Because everybody's like, why didn't you grade those cards? Why haven't you graded those cards? From the most basic ones to the Charizards to all the way to the trophy cards. What's your thought?
Yeah, if I were tasked with advising you on how to sell it, grading would absolutely be involved in that if we were trying to maximize it. As far as you owning it, maintaining it, enjoying it yourself, there's no reason to add all that money. Hindsight, given now that we have hindsight, how much of an industry leader generally PSA is, how much of a premium they add to it, how much more they're charging and upcharging for their services now. Hindsight, Dan would say, hey, Dave, we're grading these in 2018 before the prices go bonkers, because you'll get them all in plastic at a much reduced price. But that couldn't have existed. We're in this new world now where we're grading with the best company as far as like market value. But honestly, like if I were tasked with maximizing the money of yours, some would go to PSA, some would go to BGS, some would go to CGC. Some would sell raw too. It would be, how much money do you want to get out of it? How much time do you want to spend optimizing? Maybe you just find the right buyer and they just buy it all raw, and you realize that you're going to lose some premium if they could have gotten 10s, but some are going to get 9s, some are going to get 8s. There's no right or wrong way to do it, and they're your cards. So it goes back to the whole, your sheet, you can do what you want with it. Your cards, you can do what you want with it. So you're the only one that can be the decider in that, right?
Yeah. All right. I know Dan, he gets nervous when we get within about 5 or 6 minutes. So Dan at KetchumAllCollectibles, I want to leave the floor to you for kind of the last, few minutes here. Is there anything else you'd like to just mention that maybe, I didn't ask about, Dan didn't ask about, no one asked about? Anything else you want to say, just kind of plugging your channels, your stores, whatever, for the audience before we kind of close up?
I think we did enough plugging of me. I'm going to plug these two fine gentlemen with me. I very much appreciate you having me on. I selfishly, I talked so much of this. How much of the 2 hours was me just yammering on? I really want to have you two guys on. I'll definitely talk with Nick, talk with Old School. We'll try to get you guys set up for Poke Flips sometime this year. We only do one guest a month, so we'll work it in at some point, though. We'll find out when the schedules work. And if you guys can't do live, we can do pre-recorded too. So hopefully in that one, the chat might be there. Maybe it'll just be Nick and I grilling you too, trying to get more of what's going on here. But yeah, this is the content I love to make. This is the content I love to consume. I love what you guys are doing. Continue doing it. And while everyone's here listening, disproportionately, who's hearing this, you've already liked and subscribed. But if somehow you haven't, please do that.
Yeah, well, thank you, buddy. Like I said, you've come so highly recommended. I bought some special things from you over the years, just to fill some holes in my collection, and I appreciate you doing some recent business with me as well. One of the things is my mind is pretty chaotic, so here I am trying to liquidate all my extras, and then I'm buying some investments from you. So it's a funny hobby and how it works, and there's, as you've articulated so magnificently through the podcast, so many ways to find value in it for yourself. If it's through friends, if it's through small business beginnings, if it's through transitioning the business and your collection into a business or other things as well. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be on with Dan and myself. And I know you've been ill recently too. And when you have a 3 and 5-year-old running around and you're playing Mr. On, that's bound to happen. So keep the mask handy for any of those germs. Wait till they're both in school. And I just appreciate you from everything. It's been a pleasure for me. I don't think I've even ever seen you before. So in all the years, it's just cool to see you and understand you're rooting for the wrong team on your shirt and all the good things that come with making hobby friendships. When will we see you this year? Will I see you at Worlds? I know. Yeah, do it, my friend. When will I? Is it? I can't see because my thing went blank. Is it a Rangers? Is it a Rangers t-shirt?
Rangers.
Okay.
Rangers, yeah.
Vegas Golden Knights, so read them and weep, buddy. It's from last year. So anyways, when will we see you? Because we have 3 minutes left for you to tell me. Will we see you at Worlds in Hawaii this year? When is the next time you'll be publicly available to be seen?
I'm going to be at Dallas Collecticon at the end of February. Okay. Being business minded, I did go. I did have the pleasure of meeting Dan. We met first in Nashville, right? Nashville and then DC.
Right. Yeah.
I saw you at both of those. And then I haven't been to a Worlds since. Unfortunately, the pandemic, we lost some. Then they went international. Hawaii may as well be international. Collecticons, though, I'm able to tie business. I'm able to meet a lot of business friends and associates and all that. So I'll be at Charlotte, Dallas, and Chicago, and probably New Jersey Collecticons. I would love to return to Worlds. I just need them to be like continental United States, likely.
Okay. All right, Dan Norton, wrap us up.
Well, yeah, nothing else to say other than, again, Dan, thanks for coming on. And yeah, me and David will definitely be making an appearance on your channel at some point, I'm sure, whether we're both on there at the same time or whether we're on separately. And maybe if we're on separately, I can get a word in and say some things. But hey, I'm sure people will enjoy it either way, and hopefully people enjoyed this. And like I say, it's probably going to be just a regular episode next week, and then I think in 2 weeks it's actually going to be some in-person episodes because I'm going to be out in Vegas with David for a week. So look forward to that, and we will see you again.
Okay, guys,
soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Koffee Talks with Dan Norton and David Person, featuring music by More Than Never and artwork by Laura Norton. A special shout out to all of our Patreon members. Join us again next time.
But they don't want you to.